In 1875, a young woman fled everything she knew, only to find herself face to face with the kind of danger and hope she never expected. What happens when the road to freedom leads through the heart of a stranger? Thank you so much for watching, and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you like the story, and where you're watching from, and why you're following this. Emma Blackwood stared at the dusty trail stretching endlessly before her. The Texas sun beat down mercilessly, reflecting off the parched earth of the West Texas frontier. It was 1875, and at 20 years old, Emma was fleeing the only life she'd ever known. Her father, Judge William Blackwood, had arranged her marriage to Colonel James Richardson, a man 30 years her senior with a reputation for cruelty that extended far beyond the military. "Keep moving," Emma whispered to her horse, a chestnut mare she'd named Liberty. The irony wasn't lost on her. Liberty was the one thing her father had never allowed her. 3 days earlier, she had overheard her father and the colonel finalizing the details of their arrangement. "She make a fine wife," her father had said. "Stubborn, but you'll break her of that." The colonel's laugh had chilled Emma to her core. "I've broken wilder fillies than her." That night, Emma had packed what little she could carry, taken her mother's locket, the only memory she had of the woman who died when she was just 5, and her father's map of the territories. She'd stolen away with Liberty before dawn, heading west toward the small settlement of Rivercross, where her mother's sister supposedly lived. "The colonel will be halfway to Fort Davis by now," Emma muttered, calculating distances in her head. "Father won't discover I'm gone until tomorrow at the earliest." The landscape changed gradually as Emma rode. The flat plains gave way to rolling hills and scattered mesquite trees. By mid-afternoon, the heat had become unbearable. Emma's throat burned with thirst, and her canteen was nearly empty. "Just a little further, girl," she encouraged Liberty, patting the mare's neck. "We'll find water soon." As if in answer to her hopes, Emma spotted a creek in the distance, nestled in a shallow valley between 2 hills. Relief washed over her as she urged Liberty forward. At the creek, Emma dismounted, letting Liberty drink while she refilled her canteen. The cool water was a blessing against her parched lips. As she knelt by the creek, a movement caught her eye, a reflection in the water that wasn't her own. Emma spun around, heart hammering in her chest. Standing not 10 feet away was a man watching her silently. His long black hair was adorned with a single eagle feather, and his face bore the weathered lines of someone who lived under the open sky. By his dress and bearing, Emma recognized him as Comanche. Fear froze her in place. The newspapers in Austin had been filled with stories of raids and violence between settlers and native tribes, but the man made no move toward her. He simply nodded toward Liberty. "Your horse is tired," he said in accented but clear English. "Too far from settlements for women alone." Emma's hand moved to the small pistol concealed in her saddlebag. "I can take care of myself." The man's expression didn't change. "Many dangers. Not just Comanche." He gestured to the hills around them. "White hunters, bandits, animals." "I'm headed to Rivercross," Emma said, deciding honesty might serve her better than fear. "My aunt lives there." The man nodded slowly. 3 days' ride. "Not safe alone." He pointed to the darkening sky. "Storm comes. Flash floods in these canyons." As if to confirm his words, a distant rumble of thunder echoed across the hills. Emma glanced anxiously at the gathering clouds. She'd heard stories of flash floods sweeping away entire camps. "There is cave," the man continued, pointing toward a rocky outcropping to the east. "Safe from water, I show you." Emma hesitated, weighing her options. The stranger could be leading her into a trap, but the rapidly darkening sky and the fatigue settling into her bones made the decision for her. "What's your name?" she asked. "Running Wolf," he answered. "My people trade with settlers at Rivercross. I return there." "I'm Emma," she replied, gathering Liberty's reins. "Emma Blackwood." Running Wolf nodded and turned toward the outcropping. "Follow, not far." As they walked, Emma studied her unexpected companion. His movements were fluid and purposeful, his eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. Despite her initial fear, she felt an odd sense of security in his presence. "Why are you helping me?" Emma asked as they picked their way through the rocky terrain, running. Wolf was silent for so long that Emma thought he might not answer. Finally he spoke. "My sister," he said simply. "Once lost in storm, White Trader helped her. Now I help you." The cave running Wolf led her to was more of a shallow overhang in the rock face, but it provided shelter from the coming storm. Emma tethered Liberty nearby under a natural stone arch, while Running Wolf gathered dry brush and kindling dot. By the time the rain began to fall in heavy sheets, a small fire burned at the mouth of their shelter, casting dancing shadows on the rock walls. Emma sat with her back against the cool stone, watching the downpour transform the landscape into a shimmering curtain of water. Running Wolf sat across from her, whittling a piece of wood with a small knife. The silence between them was surprisingly comfortable. "You run from something," he said eventually, his dark eyes reflecting the firelight as he looked up at her. It wasn't a question. Emma tensed. "What makes you say that?" "Woman alone." "Riding fast, looking back," he shrugged. "Running from not to." Emma stared into the fire, debating how much to reveal. "My father," she finally admitted. "He arranged for me to marry a cruel man." "I couldn't," her voice caught. Running Wolf nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Among my people, woman has choice, not property to trade." "It's not supposed to be that way for us either," Emma said bitterly. "But my father is a judge. What he says is law." "Law of man, not law of heart," Running Wolf replied. He handed her a strip of dried meat from his pouch. "Eat, sleep. Tomorrow we ride to Rivercross." As Emma chewed the tough jerky, she realized this stranger, this Comanche warrior whom she'd been taught to fear, had shown her more kindness in a few hours than her father had in years. "Thank you," she said softly. Running Wolf nodded once, then turned his attention back to his whittling. As the storm raged outside their shelter, Emma felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time: hope that perhaps there was a different path for her after all. Dawn broke with a crimson splash across the eastern sky. Emma woke to find Running Wolf already up, tending to the horses. The storm had passed during the night, leaving behind a transformed landscape. The creek had swollen into a rushing torrent, and the parched earth had turned to mud. "We wait," Running Wolf said, noticing Emma's gaze on the flooded terrain. "Water go down by midday." Emma nodded, stretching her stiff muscles. She'd slept better than expected on the hard ground, exhaustion overcoming discomfort. As she moved to check her saddlebags, she noticed a small wooden figure placed near her bedroll, a horse, intricately carved despite its small size. "You made this?" she asked, holding up the carving. Running Wolf nodded. "Spirit horse, for protection on journey." Emma turned the figure in her palm, touched by the unexpected gift. "It's beautiful, thank you." They shared a simple breakfast of jerky and dried berries from Running Wolf's provisions. As they ate, Emma found herself curious about her companion. "You speak English very well," she observed. "Missionary school," Running Wolf replied. 3 winters, learned words numbers. A shadow crossed his face. "Learned white man's God, too." "You didn't stay," Emma said. Running Wolf looked toward the horizon. "My people needed me. War came, I returned." He was silent for a moment before adding, "Now I travel between worlds. Trade, translate, try to make peace. Is peace possible?" Emma asked, thinking of the newspaper headlines about Indian wars. "Possible," Running Wolf nodded. "Not easy. Too much blood spilled, too many promises broken." He looked at her directly. "But some good people on both sides." By mid-morning, as Running Wolf had predicted, the waters began to recede. They packed their meager camp and prepared to continue their journey. The going was slow, picking their way carefully across muddy terrain. As they rode, Running Wolf pointed out plants and their uses, which berries were safe to eat, which leaves could soothe burns or fever. Emma listened intently, finding his knowledge fascinating. My mother knew plants, she told him. She had a garden behind our house in Austin. I remember helping her when I was very small. Your mother is gone? Running Wolf asked. Emma nodded, her hand instinctively touching the locket around her neck. She died of fever when I was 5. Father changed after that. Became harder, colder. Grief does this, Running Wolf said. Turn some hearts to stone. Did you lose someone? Emma asked, then immediately regretted her boldness. I'm sorry, I shouldn't pry. Running Wolf was quiet for several strides. My wife, he finally said, and son. Soldiers came to our winter camp. We were not fighting, just living. They did not care. Emma felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. I'm so sorry. Was many winters ago, Running Wolf replied. Pain remains, but I choose not to let it make me hate all white people. Hate solves nothing. They rode in silence after that, each lost in their own thoughts. By late afternoon, they reached a ridgeline that offered a view of the surrounding territory. Running Wolf pointed to a distant smudge on the horizon. River cross, he said. We reach tomorrow. As they made camp that evening in a sheltered grove, Emma found herself reluctant for their journey to end. Despite the circumstances, there was a freedom in this nomadic existence that she'd never experienced before. What will you do in Rivercross? Running Wolf asked as they sat by the fire. Find my aunt, Emma replied. Beyond that. She shrugged. I never planned further. Just knew I had to leave. Sometimes first step is enough, Running Wolf observed. Emma nodded, staring into the flames. What about you? What awaits you in Rivercross? Trade goods, he answered. Furs, leatherwork. My sister makes beaded jewelry. White women pay good price. A slight smile touched his lips. Then return to my people's camp near Buffalo River. Is it beautiful there? Emma asked, trying to imagine a life so different from her own. Running Wolf's expression softened. Very beautiful, tall grass, many trees by river, good hunting. Good place for children to grow. As night deepened around them, Emma lay on her bedroll, listening to the chorus of insects and distant coyote calls. Running Wolf sat at the edge of their camp, a silhouette against the star-filled sky. Keeping watch. In that moment, Emma realized how much her worldview had shifted in just 2 days. The man she'd been taught to fear as a savage had shown her more humanity than most civilized men of her acquaintance. She clutched the wooden horse carving in her palm, wondering what other truths she might discover on this journey away from everything she'd known. Morning came with a heavy mist clinging to the ground. As they broke camp and continued toward Rivercross, Emma noticed Running Wolf growing increasingly alert, his eyes scanning the horizon with careful attention. What is it? She asked, sensing his tension. Dust, he pointed to the south. Riders, moving fast. Emma felt her heart sink. How many? 3, maybe 4. Running Wolf replied, guiding his horse off the main trail and into a stand of cottonwoods. Come, we watch first. They dismounted and led their horses deeper into the trees. Finding a vantage point, Running Wolf pulled out a small brass spyglass, clearly a trade item from white settlers. 4 men, he confirmed, passing Emma the glass. 2 wear soldier clothes. Emma's hands trembled as she looked through the spyglass. Even at this distance, she recognized the broad-shouldered figure leading the group. The colonel, she whispered, fear constricting her throat. And those are my father's men with him. Running Wolf's expression darkened. They track you. Emma nodded, cold dread washing over her. My father must have discovered I was missing sooner than I thought. She lowered the spyglass, panic rising. What do we do? Running Wolf considered their options. They follow main trail to Rivercross. We take different path. But my aunt, not safe now, Running Wolf cut her off. They watch town for you. Emma knew he was right. If the colonel reached Rivercross before her, her aunt's house would be the first place he'd watch. Where can we go? She asked, desperation edging her voice. Running Wolf was silent for a moment, weighing something in his mind. Finally he said, my people's camp, 3 days north. Safe there, Emma hesitated. Entering a Comanche camp was far beyond anything she'd contemplated when fleeing Austin. Yet what choice did she have? Return and marry the colonel? The very thought made her shudder. "Will your people accept me?" she asked. "You under my protection," Running Wolf replied. "They will not harm you." A hint of wry humor touched his expression. "May not welcome with open arms, but will not harm." It wasn't the most reassuring answer, but it was honest. Emma took a deep breath and nodded. "Lead the way." They waited until the riders had passed, then emerged from their hiding place and turned north, away from Rivercross and deeper into territory unknown to Emma. As they rode, Emma couldn't help glancing back, wondering if she'd ever return to the world she'd known, or if this unexpected detour would become the new direction of her life. The journey north took them through increasingly rugged terrain. Emma, raised in the relatively comfortable surroundings of Austin, found herself challenged by each passing mile. Yet with Running Wolf's guidance, she learned to navigate the wilderness in ways she'd never imagined. "Watch," he instructed, pointing to barely perceptible tracks in the earth. "Deer passed here 2, maybe 3 hours ago." Emma studied the faint impressions. "How can you tell how recent they are?" "Edges," Running Wolf explained. "Fresh tracks have sharp edges. Wind, sun make them soft." He demonstrated by pressing his own finger into the soil, then brushing it lightly. "See how it changes?" These lessons continued throughout their journey: how to find water by watching bird flight patterns, which plants could be eaten, how to move quietly through underbrush. Emma absorbed it all eagerly, finding unexpected joy in this education so different from the piano lessons and social etiquette her father had insisted upon. On the second day, they crossed paths with a small herd of wild horses. Emma watched in awe as the magnificent creatures galloped across the plain, manes flowing in the wind. "So beautiful," she breathed. "So free," Running Wolf nodded. "Mustangs, spirit of the land." "Have you ever caught one?" Emma asked. A smile touched his lips. "My first horse. Black stallion, many spots on rump. Fastest in the tribe." Pride colored his voice. "Took 3 days to gentle him." 3 days? Emma laughed. "The horse trainers in Austin would take weeks." "Your people try to break spirit." Running Wolf replied. "We become one with horse's spirit." Different way. As they made camp that evening, Emma found herself contemplating those words. How much of her life had been about breaking her spirit, rather than nurturing it? Her father's constant correction, the rigid expectations, the arranged marriage, all designed to bend her to someone else's will. "What are you thinking?" "Running," Wolf asked, noticing her pensive mood as he tended the small fire. "About different ways of seeing the world," Emma replied. "Everything I was taught about your people." "It's not what I'm experiencing," Running Wolf nodded. "Same for me." "White." Missionaries said all white people bring civilization, goodness. A wry expression crossed his face. "Then I saw white soldiers kill children." "Not all of us are like that," Emma said softly. "Not all Comanche are what your stories say either," he countered. "Some cruel, yes, some kind, like all people." They ate a meal of rabbit that Running Wolf had snared earlier, the meat flavored with wild herbs. As darkness settled around them, Emma found herself sharing stories of her childhood in Austin, her mother's garden. Her secret reading of books her father considered inappropriate for a young lady. Her dreams of traveling beyond Texas. In return, Running Wolf spoke of his people's traditions, the ceremonies marking a child's passage to adulthood, the seasonal migrations following buffalo herds, the stories told around winter fires. His deep voice painted pictures that transported Emma to a life so different from her own. "Tomorrow we reach my people's camp," Running Wolf said as the fire burned low. "Some will be curious, some suspicious. Stay close to me." Emma nodded, anxiety mingling with anticipation. "Will I meet your family?" "My sister, Singing Bird, her husband and children." He poked at the embers with a stick. "My father, if he has returned from hunting party." "And they'll allow me to stay?" Emma asked, the reality of her situation sinking in. Running Wolf considered his answer carefully. "For short time, yes." Council will decide about longer. It wasn't the reassurance Emma had hoped for, but it was truthful. She appreciated that Running Wolf never softened reality for her benefit. They rose before dawn the next day, breaking camp quickly. As they rode, Emma noticed Running Wolf becoming more animated, pointing out landmarks with increasing frequency. A distinctively shaped rock formation, a bend in a small river, a lone tree standing sentinel on a hilltop. By mid-afternoon, they crested a rise, and Running Wolf raised his hand, signaling Emma to stop. Below them, nestled in a verdant valley, alongside a winding river, stood a large encampment. Dozens of tipis formed a rough circle, with horses grazing in a natural corral formed by the river's bend. Smoke rose from cooking fires, and Emma could make out figures moving about the camp. "Buffalo River Camp," Running Wolf announced, a note of pride in his voice. "My home." Emma felt her heart quicken. The scene before her was so far removed from anything in her experience that it might as well have been another world. "It's beautiful," she said honestly, taking in the harmonious way the settlement blended with its natural surroundings. As they descended toward the camp, a rider approached them at a gallop. A young man with a painted face pulled his horse to a halt before them, speaking rapidly to Running Wolf in Comanche. Though Emma couldn't understand the words, the tension in the exchange was clear. Running Wolf responded calmly but firmly, occasionally gesturing toward Emma. Finally, the young warrior turned his horse and raced back toward the camp. "What was that about?" Emma asked, anxiety tightening her chest. "Scout," Running Wolf explained. "He goes to tell others we come." With white woman, he gave her a reassuring look. "It is unusual, but not dangerous." By the time they reached the outskirts of the camp, a small delegation had gathered to meet them. At their center stood an elderly man with deeply lined features and long gray braids, wearing a fringed leather shirt adorned with elaborate beadwork. Running Wolf dismounted and approached the elder, speaking respectfully in their shared language. The old man listened impassively, his dark eyes occasionally shifting to Emma, who remained nervously atop Liberty. After what seemed an eternity, the elder nodded once and said something that caused the tension in the gathering to ease slightly. Running Wolf turned to Emma and motioned for her to dismount. "My father, Gray Eagle, gives permission for you to enter camp," he explained as she shakily got down from her horse. "You are guest under my protection." Emma summoned her courage and approached the elder, stopping at a respectful distance. "Thank you for your hospitality," she said, hoping her sincere gratitude transcended the language barrier. Gray Eagle studied her for a long moment, then spoke. Running Wolf translated. "He says you have traveled far from your path. Now you must find new path with open eyes and strong heart." The small procession moved into the camp, drawing curious stares from all sides. Children peered from behind tipi flaps, women paused in their work to watch, and warriors assessed her with undisguised suspicion. They stopped before a large tipi decorated with painted symbols. A woman emerged, slender, with intelligent eyes and a presence that commanded respect, despite her small stature. She looked to be a few years older than Running Wolf. "My sister, Singing Bird," Running Wolf introduced her. To Emma's surprise, Singing Bird addressed her directly in accented but clear English. "Brother says you run from bad marriage," she said, her gaze direct and assessing. "Many women understand this. Come." She gestured toward the tipi entrance. "You rest now, many questions later." Inside the tipi, Emma was struck by the comfortable orderliness of the space. Beautifully tanned hides covered the floor, and painted designs adorned the inner walls. Singing Bird indicated a pile of soft furs where Emma could rest. "Thank you," Emma said, suddenly overwhelmed by the journey and the strangeness of her surroundings. "I don't know how to repay your kindness." Singing Bird's expression softened slightly. "Running Wolf sees something in you. That is enough for now." She handed Emma a small wooden cup of water. "Rest. Tonight council meets. They decide." Left alone, Emma sank onto the furs, exhaustion washing over her in waves. Despite her anxiety about what the council might decide, the rhythmic sounds of camp life outside, children's laughter, Women's voices, the distant nickering of horses, lulled her into a deep sleep. She dreamed of riding across endless plains. The wooden spirit horse Running Wolf had carved growing to life-size beneath her, carrying her toward a horizon that kept expanding with each stride. In the dream, she felt a freedom and belonging she'd never known in waking life. Emma awakened to Singing Bird gently shaking her shoulder. Outside, the light had faded to dusk. "Council gathers," Singing Bird said. "You must come." Heart pounding, Emma followed Singing Bird to a large central fire where the elders of the tribe had assembled. Running Wolf stood nearby, his face unreadable in the firelight. As Emma took her place in the circle, she wondered what fate awaited her in this world, so different from everything she'd known. Yet strangely, the fear that had driven her from Austin seemed distant now, replaced by a tentative hope that perhaps here, among these people she'd been taught to fear, she might find a path to the freedom she'd always sought. The council fire cast long shadows across the gathering. Emma sat with her back straight, summoning every lesson in composure her father had ever forced upon her. The irony wasn't lost on her, his rigid training serving her now in circumstances. He would find appalling. Gray Eagle spoke first, his weathered voice rising and falling in cadences Emma couldn't understand but found strangely melodic. Other elders joined the discussion, some gesturing toward her with what seemed like concern or suspicion, others speaking in measured tones. Running Wolf occasionally translated fragments for her. "They discuss whether you bring danger to camp," he murmured. "Some fierce soldiers will follow, will they?" Emma asked, the possibility striking her with fresh horror. Running Wolf's expression was grave. "We covered tracks well. But your father is judge. Colonel is military man. They have resources." An older woman with silver-streaked braids spoke next, her voice carrying surprising authority. Running Wolf leaned closer to Emma. "Medicine woman says spirits brought you here for purpose. Says you have role to play." The debate continued as the moon rose higher. Finally, Gray Eagle raised his hand, and the circle fell silent. He spoke directly to Emma, his eyes reflecting the firelight. Running Wolf translated, "My father says you may stay until next full moon. Time to learn. Time to decide true path. You will work with women, learn our ways. Prove your worth to camp." Relief washed over Emma, a reprieve, if temporary. She bowed her head respectfully to Gray Eagle. "Thank you. I will work hard and learn." As the council dispersed, Singing Bird approached. "You sleep in my tipi," she said. "Tomorrow work begins." Work began before dawn. Emma was awakened by Singing Bird and led to the river where women were already gathering to collect water in beautifully crafted containers. Emma's soft hands, unused to physical labor, blistered quickly on the rough handles, but she persisted. Without complaint, days fell into a rhythm unlike anything in Emma's previous life. She rose with the sun, helped prepare morning meals, learned to scrape and tan hides, gathered firewood, and assisted with the endless tasks that maintained the camp's life. The women were initially distant, watching her with guarded expressions. But as days passed and Emma worked alongside them without complaint, their attitudes gradually softened. An elderly woman named Turtle Woman took particular interest in Emma, showing her how to identify medicinal plants and prepare healing poultices. "Your hands learn quickly," Turtle Woman commented through Singing Bird's translation, examining Emma's work on a hide. "Mine must learn too." In the evenings, Emma often found herself sitting with Running Wolf's family around their fire. His sister's children, initially shy, gradually warmed to her. The youngest, a 5-year-old boy named Little Fox, delighted in teaching Emma Comanche words, dissolving into giggles at her pronunciation attempts. "He says you speak like duck," Singing Bird translated, a rare smile lighting her serious face. 2 weeks into Emma's stay, scouts brought news that caused a ripple of tension through the camp. Running Wolf sought Emma out where she was helping to prepare pemmican, a mixture of dried meat, fat, and berries that could be stored for winter. "White men asking questions in settlements," he told her, his expression grave. "Showing your likeness. Offering reward, Emma's hand stilled. There. Still searching. Running Wolf nodded. Colonel is persistent. What will happen when the full moon comes? Emma asked, voicing the question that had lingered since the council's decision. Running Wolf was silent for a long moment. Council will decide again. Some think you should return to your people. And you? Emma asked, searching his face. What do you think? Something flickered in his dark eyes. I think paths cross for reason. Your spirit is strong. You learn our ways quickly. He looked toward the children playing nearby. Camp sees this too. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She slipped from Singing Bird's tipi and walked to the edge of camp, gazing up at the waxing moon. In another week, it would be full, and her fate would be decided. A soft footfall alerted her to Running Wolf's presence before he spoke. Dangerous. To walk alone at night. I needed to think, Emma replied, not turning from her contemplation of the stars. My father always said women shouldn't trouble themselves with thinking. Running Wolf moved to stand beside her. Your father wrong about many things, Emma smiled despite her worry. Yes, he was. They stood in companionable silence, the night sounds of the prairie surrounding them. Finally, Emma spoke the truth that had been forming in her heart. I don't want to go back, she said quietly. Not ever. Running Wolf nodded as if he'd expected this. Life here is hard. Different from what you know. I've learned more about living in these weeks than in 20 years in Austin, Emma replied. About what matters, about who I am without my father's rules. Some of tribe will not accept white women staying permanently, Running Wolf cautioned. Then I'll earn their acceptance, Emma said with determination. However long it takes. Running Wolf studied her face in the moonlight. You have changed since Creek Crossing. Emma considered this. Not changed. Found myself, perhaps. The days before the full moon passed too quickly. Emma threw herself into camp life with renewed purpose, rising earlier, working harder, absorbing every lesson offered. She noticed Singing Bird watching her with speculative eyes. One evening, as they prepared the evening meal together, Singing Bird spoke unprompted. You wish to stay? It wasn't a question, but Emma answered anyway. Yes, more than anything. Singing Bird nodded thoughtfully. My brother watches you, not as white woman, as woman. Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. I've noticed. Path would be difficult, Singing Bird continued pragmatically. Both outsiders in own way. Him caught between worlds. You leaving your world behind. Some paths are worth the difficulty, Emma replied softly. The night of the full moon arrived clear and cold. The council gathered once more, the fire built higher than usual. Emma wore a dress Singing Bird had given her, made of soft tan. Deer hide with simple beadwork at the hem. This time when Gray Eagle spoke, Running Wolf didn't need to translate. The elder addressed Emma directly in halting English. Woman called Emma, he began, his voice carrying surprising strength. Council watch, Council see, you work hard, learn fast. He gestured to the women of the tribe. They say your hand's good. Your heart open. Emma held her breath, hardly daring to hope. Some say you bring danger, Gray Eagle continued. True words. White men still search, but... He looked to his son, then back to Emma. Running Wolf say you have Comanche spirit in white body. Medicine woman agree. A murmur went through the assembly. Gray Eagle raised his hand for silence. Council decide, you may stay. Learn our ways, become Comanche in heart if not in blood. His expression grew stern, but must take Comanche name. Must follow Comanche ways. Must be loyal to tribe above all. Joy surged through Emma, almost overwhelming in its intensity. Thank you, she managed to say, her voice thick with emotion. I will honor your trust. Later, as the celebration feast wound down, Running Wolf found Emma at the edge of the firelight. You have new life now, he said, new path. Emma nodded, still scarcely believing the council's decision. What happens next? Naming ceremony tomorrow, he replied. Then you begin true learning, deeper ways of our people. He hesitated, then added, "If you wish, I will teach you to ride like Comanche, to hunt, to speak our language better." "I would like that," Emma said softly. Running Wolf reached into a pouch at his waist and withdrew something that glinted in the firelight. Necklace of finely worked silver with a small turquoise stone. "Made this," he said simply, holding it out to her, "for your new beginning." As Emma accepted the gift, their fingers brushed. In that moment, she knew with certainty that her impulsive flight from Austin had led her not to a temporary refuge, but to her true home, under the vast canopy of stars, with the sounds of the camp settling for the night around them. Emma felt the last ties to her old life dissolve. The path ahead would not be easy, she harbored no illusions about that. The colonel might still hunt for her. The tribe's acceptance would need to be earned daily. The gap between her past and present would require constant navigation. But for the first time in her life, Emma was choosing her own destiny, writing her own story. As she looked at Running Wolf, she saw not the savage of her father's warnings, but a man of honor, wisdom, and quiet strength, a man who had seen something in her worth saving that day by the creek. "What name will they give me?" she asked. Running Wolf smiled. "Medicine Woman has dreamed it already. Woman who finds her own path." Emma laughed softly. "Perfect." As they walked back toward the center of camp, Emma felt a sense of rightness settle deep in her bones. The wooden spirit horse Running Wolf had carved for her protection had indeed guided her to an unexpected destination, not just to a physical place, but to a version of herself she would never have discovered had she remained in her father's world. Tomorrow would bring the naming ceremony, and with it, the official beginning of her new life. But in her heart, Emma knew the transformation had begun the moment she'd chosen to flee rather than submit, to seek freedom rather than security. Under the full moon's witness, she silently thanked whatever fate or providence had led Running Wolf to that creek crossing and changed the course of her life forever.